The time is 3 o'clock and I think we can begin. I would want to begin by introducing Sanjay. For some reason my voice is echoing. Yeah. So let me briefly introduce Sanjay. So Sanjay, in my knowledge, I think he is one of the oldest and the other side is most experienced internet entrepreneurs from India. Almost more than 15 years of experience in internet businesses. He started his first business, Home India, almost in 15 years back, and continued with that, exited from that, and then he moved on to another company called Compare Infobase. 98 he started Home India, and then he was part of a Compare Infobase, which is almost 800 people internet business. He was the chief operations officer there. And he continued there, and then he started recently his latest venture is Social Wavelength. So I'm sure many of you would have already heard about Social Wavelength. I think in my knowledge, Social Wavelength is the largest pure play social media agency based out of India. And I think the kind of work they are doing, the kind of brands they are working for the years, and the team, especially Sanjay and his other co-founder, I think they probably, in my view, are the most matured people to handle digital and social. So it's a pleasure to have Sanjay be part of this webinar. I'm sure there is a lot all of us can learn, and I'm personally looking at learning from Sanjay's session as well. Just a brief about today's session. As the name says, it's a session on how to create social media strategies, right? So typically what happens is, most of the times, given this market is still evolving, I have observed that most of the campaigns within social media are more ad hoc than planned and methodical. And I think that probably makes all the difference in terms of the results you can get if you can take a structured approach to your campaigns in social media, starting from defining your objectives to have a measurability in place. So that's the whole idea of this webinar, is to get you thinking about how can you create a structured approach to your social media campaigns so that you are producing reliable results rather than just some exceptional success you create. So over to you, Sanjay, and looking forward to learning from this webinar myself as well.
Thank you very much, Pradeep. It's a pleasure to be part of this digital media event on, as a webinar on social media strategy. And thanks for the fairly flattering introduction that you've given, Pradeep. So, we are at a very interesting point in the space. I think that several companies, several brands made a beginning into digital and social media a few years back, 2 years, 3 years, some of them are begun about a year ago. And I think some of the companies are still about to begin. So when we think of a, concept like a social media strategy, and I need to try and do justice to that through this presentation, I guess I have to put myself somewhere in the middle of that chain, because if any of you listeners are already there, you might find some of it a little too fundamental. And for those who begin, those who are about to begin or planning to begin, hopefully this is stuff which you can use to start from scratch on creating a social media strategy. Also, a lot of it depends on what kind of vertical you are in, what kind of business objective you have. So to try to make a common sort of a single pointed strategy document or a suggestion is that much more challenging. But hopefully we can take some case studies to the Q&A, and that will give a flavor of how the common strategy can actually pan out for different industries or different business objectives. So with that sort of background, we can get started. I intend to cover this presentation in between 35 to 40 minutes, giving us a fair amount of time, 15-20 minutes to take on Q&A. I had seen on the website that there were already a fair number of questions which had come, and so I can see that there is a huge amount of inquiry around this subject, so I'm actually going to look forward to the Q&A part myself. So Pradeep has already introduced me, so I'm not going to spend much time. But yeah, these are three companies which I'm associated in the last 15 years. HomeIndia.com was an earlier entrepreneurial venture which we ran from about 98 to 2007. I spent a year and a half with Compare Infobase in Delhi, and from 2009 onwards, this is the new venture of ours, which is Social Wavelength, which is a social media agency. Just a few of the clients with whom with whom we are associated. This is not an exhaustive list, but just to give a sense of the kind of mix of clients which we work with, and from where I derive a lot of my experience and which I'm going to share today. So with that, here's what we see as an agenda for the presentation, with a quick look at the fundamentals about what is social media, where are there opportunities for brands to use social media, how do we create a fundamental strategy, and then specific elements like content communication plan, influencer engagement, and monitoring before we get into the Q&A. Right. So what is social media? And if you ask people, even including people who are practitioners of social media, who run social media businesses, you'll probably hear different definitions. And there is, of course, no one clear definition of what is social media. But for the purpose of this conversation, which we are going to have, let's try and have some clarity in what we talk about in terms of what is social media. In very, very simple terms, it's a conversation. It's a conversation supported by online tools. Slightly more elaborate description could be that it's the sharing of experiences, insights, opinions by people amongst each other. And to kind of differentiate it from traditional media, in case of social media, it's people talking to each other. In traditional media, whether it was newspapers, television, boardings, whatever, there's always been a brand or an entity on one side and then the readers on the other side. So here, there is no such necessity of a brand or an entity. It's people talking to each other. That's the space of social media. And if a brand needs to be present, it has to find its way to be a subtle partner, a subtle presence within that conversation which is already happening amongst people. Again, a lot of times it's made out that it's a technology play, but really technology runs a lot of things today. But at its core, social media is not so much a technology game as much as it's about, let's say, sociology and psychology, as an expert in the space, brand services, and I completely agree with it. Then again, it's every single day virtually we get inquiries from companies and brands who say, I want to set up social media to generate leads and stuff like that. We want to sell through social media, and while at its end, towards the end, there may be a way in which this will lead to sales for a company or a brand, but you can't get into social media with a basic objective that I want to sell. Because social is not about selling, it's not about marketing, it's not about promoting. It is about being helpful. But if you are helpful, if you are relevant, if you are interesting to your audience as a company, as a brand, other things will follow by default. And then again, this is another thought that a lot of brand managers have, that we can control what perception people have about our brand, that we can control the brand image. The reality today in today's world of social media is that the brand is no longer what the brand tells the consumer. It's what consumers tell you. It's basically your brand image is not about what you make out of it, but what people are talking about. And of course, what they talk about can be influenced by you by the way you participate with them in the space. So you can try and do a genuine job and influence the consumers about what they should think about you, but you can't control it just by putting up a large ad in the newspaper. So that's again the reality of the day. Although I'm sure all of us have some sense of its size, a few numbers for just to get a sense. So Twitter today is more than 500 million registered users. I don't even bother to keep updating this number because it keeps growing all the time. YouTube, it would YouTube says that in every single minute, roughly 72 hours worth of new video is being uploaded. So in the next 60 seconds I want to talk here, another 72 hours worth of video play time will be uploaded on YouTube, and it keeps happening minute after minute and day after day and week after week. So that's a lot of video out there which people are putting up and which people are obviously viewing as well. Facebook has gone to more than 1 billion people in the world. Even in India, it's crossed a 70 million number. So there's definitely a great size in the biggest book, which is Facebook. And even in India today, we almost not a single brand can afford to ignore the space, because the 70 million who are there on Facebook, and of course the people who are there on other social media platforms, represent a certain influencer set of citizens. I mean, these are consumers who are having access to computers, probably smartphones. So they represent a certain demographic in the society which is very influential. So if you are in the business of selling any kind of a product or a service, you can scarcely choose to ignore these people. So, and it's growing again, 70 million today. In a few months you'll see a much larger number. And so also is the case with blogs. There's just a huge number of blogs out there. People are reading them. People are viewing the content of blogs. So in short, I mean, it's not that these numbers, we need to sort of particularly worry about these numbers, but these are huge, which is only to re-emphasize that social media is not anymore about a niche audience, but it's pretty much getting mainstream. And whatever be the kind of business you're in, you have to have a strategy for social media, and which of course is what our talk today is about. And for those who feel that look, I'm in a so-and-so kind of industry where I haven't seen anybody using it, or I haven't seen a serious case study, and people keep waiting for seeing a case study in the industry. And the reality, as Sid Godin puts, is that by the time there is actually a case study for your industry, it may actually be too late for you to catch up. Because by the time a case study emerges, say it's a competitor of yours whose case study comes up, he would have already spent a fair amount of time experimenting and learning, making mistakes, and then got there. And you would still need to do all that. And that competitor would have already run way ahead of you, and you would only be playing a catch-up game, which would be a challenging one. So if as a brand, as a company, you're convinced that there's an opportunity for you, don't wait for a case study in your industry. Why don't you make one for yourself? So indeed, social media has come a long way, but as I mentioned at the beginning, there are still many who are taking their first steps. So let's understand the very fundamentals that about social media. A little, like I mentioned at the outset, but again, put it very specifically, social media is the online technologies and practices that people use to share opinions, insights, experiences, and perspectives. That, in a nutshell, kind of covers the various angles of social media the way we would see it. Now the question is that why has it become so large, and why is it viral? Is it one more fad? Is it something which is going to die away in a few years? Can I just wait it out and not do anything because like any other fad, it will disappear? So I don't need to worry about it. Well, first of all, let's understand what drives social media. Why do people participate so much in the social media space? The reasons that drive participation are all of these. People want to keep in touch, people want to make new friends, people want to belong to groups, people want to display their own creativity. There is a whole amount of peer pressure which generates a a push to participate in social media. Sometimes it's about paying it forward. What it means that you got some help from somebody, you want to give it back to somebody else, so the whole positive cycle keeps going forward. These are the kind of reasons why there is a motivation for people to participate in social media. Now, these reasons are not in particular reasons around social media. These are reasons which are drivers for human behavior. As individuals, as people, we like to keep in touch. We are subject to peer pressure. We look to make new friends. We want to display our creativity. All of these are very natural human instincts. And social media enables you to vent out your human instinct through the space. Now, because it's what people anyway want to do, and social media enables that, that's one big reason why social media keeps growing and will continue to grow. For example, as against if something was a fad, and a classic case which I want to remind people is about, let's say, something like a Rubik's Cube. A Rubik's Cube was something which got the world going. People around the world were twiddling their fingers around a piece of plastic trying to solve the Rubik's Cube. And probably a year, 2 years, 3 years, it was a huge hit. Everybody was doing it. But then it disappeared. Now, something like a Rubik's Cube was not something that people did naturally. It was not something that you want to do every day. It was something that somehow came across you got captivated, and you did it. But by some time, the fad wore off, and you went on doing other things. So while all of the reasons which keeps social media going are things which are very natural to human beings, and hence it's continuing to grow. And how does it sort of manifest itself? So while social networks are one of the classic cases in which this manifests, and and I go back to the definition on the top of the slide. Social media is about the online technologies and practices that people use to share opinions, insights, experiences, and perspectives. So social networking sites, of course, are a clear manifestation of that statement. But so also are other things, like, for example, blogs. Blogs are something that a person may write his or her opinion, and there are others who will see it, read it, and comment on it. And through that comment, the interaction happens, exchange of opinions happens, exchange of experiences happens. What is blogs? I mean, what is to text? The same way user-generated videos and podcasts do the same thing for video content or audio content. You have forums and message boards, which are group participation areas where a larger number of people will participate and have multiple discussions going on. Ratings and reviews, for example, are things where people come and share opinions about a vehicle, about a camera, about a holiday spot, and in doing so, they are enabling others to get the benefit of their experience. And there again, it's a question of sharing of opinions, insights, experiences, etc. So what is today thought of as social media would cover all of these kinds of platforms, of course, beyond just social networking sites. So really, from a brand's point of view, when you think of creating a strategy, so first of all, you need to figure out what is it that you can do with social media. You have to begin with an objective, and for which you need to understand what are the kind of opportunities you have as a company, as a brand. And very simply speaking, these are the kind of opportunities which you would have. The first opportunity, the way we see it, is the opportunity to listen. And basically what's happening is that the conversations which are happening on social media are largely public in nature. So when people put out a blog or people tweet, even a lot of the Facebook conversation often is very public. And as a brand, as a company, people, there are consumers of yours who would be talking about you whether you are there or not there, whether you like it or you don't like it. And you have an opportunity to go and listen in and understand what your brand means to customers. What are they talking about? Do they like something which you have done? Do they like your campaigns? Who's talking more? Who are the people who are advocating your brand, who are influencing others to consider your brand? What are they talking about competition? What are they talking about industry trends, etc.? All of these are things which you can actually tap through listening. And how you do it is, of course, using some social media monitoring tools, etc., are the ways in which you would actually do it. But this is something which is easily possible, and that's your first opportunity. The second opportunity is the opportunity to speak. Okay. Now, here it's important to understand that brands have spoken a lot. So your television ad is speaking, your print ad is speaking, your hoardings are speaking, your PR is all about speaking. But all of that kind of speaking was one way. It was a broadcast. Whereas the difference in social media is that speaking is about starting a conversation. So you got to go in thinking that I will listen, I will speak, I will listen again, I will speak. So there's a two-way conversation happening. And done right, done well, you have an opportunity to create a dialogue and learn from your customers what they are looking for, what they like, what they dislike about you. Have a good feedback channel. Done well, it can convert into a community. People who are users of your product actually convert into a community, and you can then use the community interestingly to put out your new launches, and other things can actually go very easily. And the fact is that because it's a medium where everything is tracked, what you speak today is remembered, you got to come out looking honest, looking like an individual, looking like a person, and genuinely interact rather than, again, going back to the mainline or traditional media's thought process where you just want to push your own thought. That's not the way it happens. It has to be clearly being honest and speaking to your consumers. The third opportunity you have is engaging. So engaging is when you kind of create a platform where people are talking back to you, with you, and also they are talking to each other. So you created a certain comfort zone where your consumers, your customers are comfortable to interact with you, maybe help you with some trial, give you opinions about something new which you're launching. There's an engagement happening, and that's the third opportunity. So beyond speaking, you are actually getting them involved in certain interactions with you. Again, done well. So you remember that whatever opportunities we are talking about, whether it's listening and speaking and engaging and now evangelizing, it's the multiple stepping stones. Very rarely can a brand get into social media and jump to evangelizing straight. You got to start with listening, do a good job, then speak, then engage. If you've done all that well, then you can have an opportunity to be evangelizing. Now, what that means is that your customers can now take your stories forward. They can share your interesting things. They can, what we talk about in Facebook, the sharing, the favoriting, and all that happens when people have otherwise got comfortable and they like what you're doing, they engage with you well. Now they are taking your stories ahead. And an evangelized customer is probably better than any kind of a sales force you could have. So that's your fourth opportunity. And which leads to the fifth opportunity, which is adopting. Adopting is a very evolved state in the sense that here is where concepts like crowdsourcing or co-creation come about. What this means is that you are out there and as a company, as a brand, and you're willing to say that you will do what your customers want you to do. In short, what should be the colors of your next version of your product? What are the kind of designs they would like to have? I mean, finally, if they are the users, they are the people who are using your product and they want it, isn't it great if they can tell you exactly what they want and you create exactly that? So this is a stage where your customers help you to create tomorrow's products and services, which is a case of co-creation or crowdsourcing. Only a company which has been very mature in the social media space can really hope and expect to get good traction at this stage. So these are your 5 clear stages. So why you want to understand is that your first step to creating a social media strategy is to understand what you want to really do. And it could be any of these, or it could be, a progression to all of these stages, instead of kind of jumping into, creating a Facebook page and then just going without having thought the background out. So, well, these are again a sort of concepts. Finally, getting into a more specific, fundamental social media strategy. So how do you actually go about creating it? And interestingly, the more things change, the more they remain the same. So marketing and advertising and all of them have some fundamentals called the 4Ps. And coming into social media again, a lot of that remains true, with some changes and some differences, and which is what we will discover in the next slide. But what we're talking about is prescribing a fundamental approach to creating a social media strategy, and that starts with understanding the 4Ps of social media. And the first P is people. So, traditional media, traditional marketing, when you think of target audience, you think of demography, age and gender and income levels and education and stuff like that. Of course, all that is true, but in terms of when you are on social media and you're trying to figure out the kind of people you wish to target, there is one more aspect which you can try to understand, which Forrester refers to as social technographics, but keeping it more simple to understand, we have to try to appreciate that for the people you are trying to target, what is their social media behavior? What are they doing on social media? Now, the few structured ways of understanding social media behavior of people are the following. One is that people could be creators. So if they are creators, they are the kind of people who create their own blog or create their own video or whatever. So that's the creators, the authors, you may say. The second kind are people who are critics. So they may not create their own original content, but when they see some content, they are okay to come and review it or comment on it or something. So that's the second kind. Third is people who are known as collectors or curators. These are people who share interesting content with their network. So they find something interesting, they are happy to click the share button and take it forward. So they are the people who spread or create a viral factor to the content. And again, that's an important kind of audience which you might have. The fourth kind are the people who are the joiners. Joiners are people who like to join groups. They like to join a group on Facebook or LinkedIn or wherever. They are people who are comfortable in a certain group which is of like-minded people. So they join groups. The fifth kind are the spectators, or the people who just consume content. So they don't create, they don't critique, they don't curate, they don't join, but they are the people who consume content. Now, they are also a very important constituency, because let's say somebody is looking to buy a car, and while they will look up the advertising and they may go and take a test drive at a showroom, they also come to social media and see what others have written, see the blogs, see the automobile forums, go and see some user videos, and they may do nothing else. They may just go and consume that content. But that decision of what car they purchase at the end will have this as a very strong influence. So if you are a brand, if you're an automobile brand, if you don't have the content that they can consume, you might miss out, right? So the sixth type of the audience is an inactive audience, somebody who's not doing anything. So figuring out where your target group lies, where is your audience. So you might know that, okay, I'm trying to reach housewives in the 25 to 45 years of age. So irrespective of your understanding of the demography, you still need to figure out that where is your audience most likely to be. Are they creators, critics, collectors, joiners, spectators, inactive? Based on that, you will go to the next step. The next P is which becomes the purpose. So why is it that you're getting into social media? Now you may have a purpose which is to just do a brand building or increase brand awareness, or you want to actually generate sales leads, or you may want to do customer service, or you may want to do market research, whatever it is, what is the purpose, you need to verbalize and articulate it very clearly. You might remember that in your offline world, when you have a separate team doing sales, a separate team doing marketing, a separate team doing operations, a separate team doing your customer service, and they all have their own strategy. So don't expect on social media a single strategy to take care of all your different business objectives. If you are creating a strategy at this point, what is it for? Is it to drive sales? Is it to create a market awareness? Is it to do customer service? Define that purpose here, because this strategy which you're making is to achieve that purpose, right? So now if you have got what is your people and what is your purpose, that leads you to the third step, which is the plan. How do I get there? If this is what I want to achieve for this kind of an audience, what's the plan? So that's where you kind of put together a stage-wise implementation. So for example, that your people, let's say, are the joiners. And by the way, in India, you have a lot of joiners, a lot of spectators. These are two big constituents of people. A lot of people just want to come and consume content and go. A lot of people want to come and join groups, which is why we have this very large number of, Facebook pages with a lot of likes and a lot of large groups and all that, because that's what as Indians, people love to do. So say you have joiners, and say your purpose is to increase brand awareness of your product, and your plan will be that, okay, I need to create a platform where people can join, because I'm addressing fundamentally joiners who like to join. So I'll create something which people want to join, and once they join, there'll be more interesting things which will keep them there, and then they'll bring other people of their kind and make the group bigger. And through that platform, I will also introduce my product once in a while, which is how my main purpose of getting brand awareness will be achieved. So that becomes your broad plan. But that's not enough, because you need to detail it out, and which is where comes the process. That how will you actually execute this? So that's where you decide that, okay, what's the platform? Will I do this on Facebook or LinkedIn or wherever? What will happen on day one? What will be the content which I put out? What will happen in the first month, second month, third month? How do I know whether I'm getting to my goal? What are my benchmarks? How will I understand that, okay, if I've got 25,000 people here, is it a good size, not a good size? Whether I compare with a competitor here, or whether I compare with an international competitor, what numbers should I track? Should I measure likes? Should I measure shares, engagement, or what else? So that is the detailing of the process. So fundamentally, this 4 Ps defines a basic social media strategy, and done right, and put down in detail on a piece of paper, on a document, and followed up well, that can be a good way to get your social media strategy going. Now, a key element of social media is definitely content. We are in a world where there's a hunger, an appetite for a lot of content with your users, with your consumers, and you need to keep putting out content, whether it's on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on YouTube, wherever. So how do you decide what is it that you should be putting out? And is it just that in the morning you come and decide, okay, let me write this today, or there's a plan? The reality is that you've got to have a good content plan out there. And what are the consequences? How do you come up with that content plan? So at the outset, identify objectives, that qualitatively where you want to reach, which comes from the previous slides when you thought of your all social media strategy. You had a purpose. That purpose is slightly more verbalized, that I want to create this kind of reach or whatever. So qualitative. Similarly, quantitative. Now, quantitative may be in the way in which you keep some numbers in mind, that I want to achieve this kind of numbers in this kind of a period. So that's your objective. Next, what you want to do is to do competition research. Understand what your competitors are doing on social media. What numbers have they reached? What is the quality of their content? What kind of content they are putting out? Are they doing any engagements with their audience? Note that down, because you want to differentiate your strategy with the rest. You don't want to look like a me too with your competitor. If you're already in social media, having started somewhere, and this is like a fresh beginning, then you want to also make a note of where you are currently. what are the numbers you have at this point, what have you been doing, because when you look at it after 3 months or 6 months, you want to look back and see what kind of changes you have brought about and how you have shifted the needle in terms of quality and quantity by the time. What you want to decide is what is the tonality of your communication going to be. So if you are a youth brand, like if you're an MTV or a Channel V or somebody, you may have a certain way of talking. You have fast track will have a certain way of talking. But if you are a bank or if you're a financial institution or if you're in a B2B market, if you're a B2B business, maybe your tonality is different. But whatever it is, understand, identify, and be true to it, consistent with it. You cannot have a tonality which is one kind today, another kind tomorrow, because as you're building a base, if you're building a set of users who are going to be connected with you on your platforms on social media, they need to see a certain consistency. They need to have a connect with what you're talking. Also, we need to decide what kind of keywords are relevant. Now, when I say keywords, it's not exactly an AdWords kind of a scenario here, but again, since you have to be getting into the audience's mind space in a subtle way, you want to think of the keywords that they would use for your industry or for your segment and try to see that you bring these up in the course of your updates and your posts and your content. So communication keywords can be identified and listed out. If you have any events which are coming up in the next quarter, 2 quarters in the next year, make a note of those, because you will have an opportunity to create separate content for just those events, whether it's a launch of a new product of yours or whether there is, your brand is such where Diwali is very important and a lot of things happen around Diwali or whatever else. So identify events which are relevant to your business calendar and make sure that you understand them from a content point of view. Once you are there, actually list out the kind of communication pegs that you will use. So say if you are, if you are a technology brand, would you be talking about the latest in technology? You'll be talking about some of the new initiatives which you have done. You may be talking about what's in the R&D labs or whatever it is that your audience is likely to be interested in. So identify those pegs. And just for clarity, just so that when you're making the plan, the people who are going to implement the plan going ahead so that they understand really well what you're talking about, along with the pegs which you identify, write down a few sample updates so somebody can understand that if you're not talking of this peg, what is it that you actually mean in terms of an update. And you might want to do this separately for each platform, because you might actually choose that I will go to LinkedIn to address my B2B market, and on Twitter I'm doing a different thing. I want to just update people on news, or on Facebook I'm doing this. So as long as you have clarity of what platform you are using for what, create communication pegs separately for each platform and create sample updates also equally for each of the communication pegs. If you're going to use LinkedIn, again, have a clarity of what is your ideal profile, the kind of people you want to connect to. Because you're in B2B space, say let's say you're a paint company and you want to reach out to business industry consumers, people who use paint. So you define what are the kind of LinkedIn profiles which are of interest to you. And just so that again, when you actually start executing, you're getting to the right people and talking the right kind of content which they will be interested in. If blog is part of your strategy, you need to have a blog architecture. What is a blog architecture? It's again about what are the different categories and subcategories that you're going to blog about. What is the frequency of update which you're going to have? What will be your blog calendar? Preferably, you can actually list out the topics of the blog. For the next 6 months, you may actually create the blog post as it keeps coming, but you have a certain plan in mind which you're going to implement based on a structure that you've created, which ensures that over time you've created content which is a mix of what you really want to get out there and serves purposes which you have from a business point of view. Then, in case if you're planning engagement, so you need to figure that out. Like I mentioned, if you had events coming up, or if there was you need to generate a certain buzz of a certain kind, and you want to have an engagement around that, then plan that out, decide what exactly it's going to be, how it's going to run. That all is also got to be put into the plan. And finally, it's a question of what's your basic hygiene on the various social media platforms going to be like? What are the kind of things which, because you've got to be consistent where you write your about us, your contact details, various things which you want to be putting across various platforms, it needs to read consistently. If you're going to put your logos, what color scheme you want to use in your cover photo or your Twitter background image, all of these need to spell a certain consistency. So what's that basic hygiene which you're going to have across platforms? Decide that as well. So that's your content communication plan. A key element of a social media strategy today is influencer outreach. The reality which we have to understand is that while there are a lot of us on social media platforms, not all of us are equal. I mean, some of us may have only so much reach and others may have a bigger reach. Influencers are a key category, one because they wield influence, they decide, they will decide or influence decisions which a lot of people will take. And secondly, because that's your route to your final consumer. You may find it challenging to reach 1 million consumers directly, but if you can get 20 great influencers who also talk your story and take it further, you get a multiplying factor through those influencers. So who are these kind of influencers? They could be some kind of middlemen, consultants, reviewers, experts in the space, people who may be blogging, people who may be, people whose blogs or their writing is read by a lot of people and respected by people. So they could be on Twitter, they could be on different platforms. So go out and identify them. It's easy to identify by running keyword searches and all and see who's talking in your space. Identify those, find a way to connect with them, create direct engagement with them, get in touch with them, and start by, let's say, inviting them to your events, get familiarity, getting them familiar about you, you becoming familiar with them. You have to treat them virtually as extremely special people, treat them with kid gloves. So, that's a way that a decent engagement can be developed with these influencers. And thereafter, include them in product suggestions, give them an early view of a new launch, basically get and respect their opinions because they matter. And that's a key element of a social media strategy for a lot of brands today. Finally, not to discount the importance of monitoring, what we have seen is that, you might remember what I mentioned in the beginning, the opportunities that brands have on social media. We start with the opportunity of listening at the very first outset. So we believe you listen first and then speak. However, in spite of all that conversation which we have, a lot of times when the brand finally gets ready to launch into social media, they want to go out and talk. They're not starting out with the listening part. However, in that they are missing an opportunity because I think the monitoring angle is where a lot of intelligence is derived, which will enable you to create the right communication plan after that. So it allows you to track your community. It allows you to see changing trends. So you're not caught by surprise if people are moving away from, let's say, a certain technology to some other technology. You will see that a trend will change in conversation first before it changes in the market. So you'll pick up the the change beforehand and be prepared for it. What are the industry developments? If your competitor is doing something interesting, you'll hear it first out there on social media because even if the competitor doesn't talk about it, news will leak, somebody will start talking about it, pick it up early. Of course, you want to see what people are talking about you, your brand mentions. Are there any sudden inflection point which you are finding that, some space is suddenly changing? If you can pick it up, it will not hurt you. It may not hurt you. So, identifying those. And of course, there is an opportunity for generating leads because, people will be talking about their requirement on these platforms directly or indirectly. So somebody may say, I'm going to take a holiday this, next month. Now, if you are a Make My Trip or a Clear Trip or Yatra or whoever, maybe that's a lead for you. That how is he planning? Does he need tickets? Does he need help with the travel plans? So, and this is the same with any kind of product or service. So, it's there. Somebody may say a very specific term that I'm looking to buy this kind of a DSLR camera. And if you're a camera company, you want to look them up. Somebody may say it indirectly, and it's up to you to pick up the opportunity and connect with them, and get actually a business opportunity there. So yeah, that's what I had to say in terms of whatever presentation I had. I think we have 15, 17 minutes or so for questions. So I'm open to questions now.
Yeah. Hi, Sanjay. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. Guys, everyone enjoyed the session so far, and I'm sure given the topic and given Sanjay's experience, we could have spent as much time on this topic. Sanjay, would you want to take the questions from or what I can do, let me take it initially from our page where the webinar is published. I think we would want to give priority to them anyways, as we had shared earlier. So let me share the question. The first question is, this is for a company which is into online handicraft and home decor selling. They want to drive traffic to their website from social media. And I think that's one question I am seeing across multiple people have shared similar. The objective is to drive traffic to their site where they may want to sell or do lead generation. What are the different approaches to drive traffic through social media?
Right. So, this is what I say that, it's through your content, if you are going to drive traffic. So there are times when you can have your social media itself, your conversation culminate on social media itself, but where there is a clear objective that you want to take them to something else, which is in this case your website, what will help is to have content which is on social media, content which is having an element of a teaser. So you've given enough out there which generates intrigue, but it is not everything, because that everything is available only when you click a link and bring them to the website. So often I've seen that when we create content on social media, we give away everything. So whatever we need to say, we have already conveyed everything, and then somebody may not even want to click your link and go further. But the opportunity for you is to say a lot, but not all. And that crucial part which you have left pending is available only when somebody clicks and goes to your site. So it's a question of creating content of that kind, and where you generate enough interest, but left a little unspoken, which is possible to be seen only once somebody actually lands up on your website. In a gist, this is the case. Whether you do this on Facebook, on Twitter, on a SlideShare platform, using Pinterest, for handicraft, a platform like Pinterest or Instagram could be really interesting, because there's interesting visual appeal which you can share, but you can say that more about this on this or something that get people to your website. So largely it's about creating enough intrigue and then leaving a link which can drive traffic back.
Okay, great. Thanks, Sanjay. There are multiple questions about different verticals. So one of the questions is about using social media for a global technology company, and I'm assuming that their core objective is likely to be lead generation. So given that objective, what is the high-level strategy approach, Sanjay, you recommend?
So when there's a clarity of what you want to do is, let's say, lead generation, but lead generation is it's clearly, if you're very focused that lead generation is what you want to do, you're probably better served by doing Google ads or something like that, because then that's very, very focused lead generation methodology. On the other hand, so whether it's Google ads or even looking through opportunities or listening into opportunities, like I mentioned, the importance of monitoring are more direct ways in which you can look for leads and generate leads. But if you want to use the core of social media, what I would believe for a global tech company is to kind of create a thought leadership angle to their business. That finally, if somebody is going to do business with you, it is because you're offering something which is special, or whether it's a kind of skill which you have, or the price, or whatever it is, something which you are differentiated about, and you create thought leadership around that differentiation. So you whether you create a blog or you participate in discussions on LinkedIn, which people are talking about issues that they have, or become a participant on Quora, where people are talking about pain points in the industry or challenges that they are facing, and through that showcase your wisdom, your understanding of the space better than others, and which becomes a very clear vehicle for people to come and talk to you and ask you about what your business is offering.
Okay, great. Sanjay, I can see there are multiple questions about listening and monitoring, and one common thread across all these questions is if you can share some of the free as well as paid tools for listening and monitoring on social media, and also your views on Radian 6.
Sure. So so there are a lot of free tools, like of course people are using something as simple as Google Alerts or Social Mention and things of that kind, and new ones keep emerging, and there are even many others which are sort of specific to say industries. And then there are paid tools, which again there are several, from SN2, Radian 6, Thoughtbuzz, various others. What decides, first of all, on what basis you pick a tool? Typically, a social media monitoring tool has one core method in which it works, which is to crawl the web and pick up conversations based on certain keywords which you're given. That's like so the crawler aspect is the key to any social media monitoring tool. And technology-wise, the way I understand now is that it's not a very difficult code to write to go and crawl. What challenges happen, what differentiates different tools at the very fundamental level is the extent of crawling that the tool does. So, for various reasons, is the way the tool is made. Some tools crawl a small percentage of the web, some do more. Some tools, like mature tools like Radian 6, have actually got direct license pipes through Twitter and places like that, and are able to pick up large chunks of conversation. So difference between multiple tools will largely be about how much of the conversation they're able to pick up and throw back at you. Now, that's one key difference. Of course, the other key differences are in terms of the bells and whistles, in terms of the kind of interfaces and the kind of reports they give you, and some amount of sentiment analysis and all that they can do, which are a little more sort of decorative differences, but the one big difference is the extent of conversation that they can pick up. Now, if you were doing listening from a perspective of getting what I would call as a dipstick view, that, okay, let me just get a sense of what people are talking about me, then a free tool is fine, because you're not bothered or not worried about picking up exhaustive data. On the other hand, if you are looking at it from a point of view that, I want to see each and every conversation about me as much as possible, or I want to see all of the things which people are talking about, competitors or about the industry. I'm doing online reputation management for my brand. In such cases, it's not enough to just do a partial search. So tools which are not that proficient will give you maybe 25% of all the conversations which are happening. What if there is something hidden in the other 75% which you can do and pick up, right? So we have done, we have done exercises with the same set of keywords on multiple tools, and we have seen quantum difference in the volume of results that the tool fetches. Quantum. It's not like a 5%, 10% difference, but one will produce X number of results, another tool may well produce 2X or 3X number of results for the same set of keywords. So if you are doing any kind of exhaustive search, you want to go with a tool which has the depth, is able to pull in a lot of conversations. And so one of those tools is Radian 6. Must have a disclosure here that our company, Social Radiant, is a representative. We resell Radian 6, or rather the whole set of marketing cloud tools of Salesforce, which includes Radian 6, Buddy Media, ExecTarget, Social.com. All of those services are part of Marketing Cloud, and which we are reseller for. But Radian 6, we were users of Radian 6 much before we became resellers. And in our experience, we found it to do a great job of searching and being part of a large company with a very clear agenda on social media, the tool has constantly been improving, and we generally like it, and we use it for some very demanding clients of ours. So that's
Great, Sanjay. Great. So, Sanjay, then there are a couple of questions on listening and monitoring and reputation. And one of the common questions which I can see is how to encounter negative comments and negative feedback. So, what should be the strategy to deal with that?
Yeah, I think at the outset, you shouldn't, unless there is if you find that there is somebody maligning your brand for no reason, negative feedback is, first of all, it's a feedback. It's yes, it hurts sometimes for people to face facts, but there are people who are disturbed and they've either not got good service or the product is not delivered for them. So they are telling you that fact. So first of all, it's important to accept that rather than be reactive about it, and analyze and try to fix things on the ground in the first place. That what is it? What is it that is the reason for these negative feedback which is coming in? What my belief is that there is no damage to the brands happening due to social media. What social media does is to amplify the reasons why there is a damage on the ground. So maybe there's a service problem or some issue which is happening at your brand on ground, and social media gives that a wing and makes it fly. So here you get a chance to go and fix the issue at the core if you can. Beyond that, if you say that, oh, it's coming on my own Facebook page, and instead of my Facebook page being the marketing space, people will come and only see negative. Now there are ways to address that. So on your page, for example, you can give a clear mention that we welcome feedback, and if you have something to tell us about our products, here's a link, and maybe it opens another tab on Facebook. So some of the people will migrate to that tab and not leave it on your wall on your Facebook page itself. So get them there. Show that you are responsive. So address feedback by saying that we'll get back to you, and then get back to them. Have a channel of response for digital and social media, which is faster and independent of a routine channel, which may take longer. So somebody who has complained to you on email or on a phone, he may also be equally disturbed. And I'm not saying that you need to disregard that, but that conversation is only between that customer and you. But any conversation which is happening on a public platform, delay in responding makes you as a brand feel, not look good to a lot of other people who are seeing that. So try to have a separate channel to respond faster there, and fundamentally showcase. Okay, there's one last thing in this context, that if there is use of expletives, somebody is getting personal, those are the kind of things, if they happen on your page, you can delete them. You can have clarity again in terms of so to say rules of the house mentioned on your Facebook page, which says that while we are open to feedback and we love to hear from our customers, what we do not accept is personal issues or expletives or derogatory remarks, and we reserve the right to delete any such mention or something like that. So you don't need to take those things, but anything else is actually good feedback. If you have too much of it, maybe there is a bigger problem. If it's somebody maligning your brand, there are different ways. You kind of go into what we call as a ring fencing strategy, where you actually there's a longer answer. I'm not sure if you have time, but there's a way to go after them, with including perhaps legal ways, and push off somebody who thinks you are a pushover. So as a brand, if they think that I can create 25 accounts, 100 accounts and keep saying negative about you, no, there is a way for you to fight back on that and make sure that those things stop.
Great, Sanjay. Thanks. One more question I can see about a couple of people have shared. How do you think can an NGO use social media? What are common objectives they can fulfill using social media?
Yeah, I think NGOs have used social media well. I think the big opportunity is for an NGO to rally around activists in that space. Okay, so usually the NGO and most NGOs have a particular goal, a particular sort of spot for which they are working, whatever it may be, girls' education or this or whatever it may be. Now, most of the time, there are people who also care about the same cause, and when people are supporting a cause, they are usually very vocal and they are active. They are also active on social media, and there's an opportunity for you to rally those people, give them space on your platform around you to come together, and through their channel, through their activism and through their participation, build a bigger presence for yourself and bring out your cause, the cause which you're supporting in bigger limelight, so as to get support for your cause, and whichever way you want, whether you want contributions, you want volunteers, whatever is it that you finally are looking for, getting support from people, that's how you could go around doing it.
Another question is about social media being used by luxury segments, typically jewelry, watches, gemstones. Do you have any example? Maybe you have worked with a client for in a luxury space.
Yeah. So there are jewelry clients, and there are brands who are in, let's say, high end of hospitality, like a five-star hotel chain and others, who who have created presence on social media. So few perspectives around it is that a lot of times the audience is also like a, so to say, the high end of the society. Sometimes celebrities, sometimes I don't know, big shots. They are often not keen to be very visible in a public platform. So they definitely use social media, but they end up using more as a consumer of content rather than being too active. They are willing to be participating, provided they are comfortable in knowing that it's a closed group of similar kind of people. Uh, a high net worth or a very high net worth individual who's a possible target for a luxury product doesn't want to appear to be very vocal, where the rest of the audience could be a different kind of society. So if he knows, or that the group is a very exclusive one, which is by invitation only, so you create a hype around that community, which is that you've got to be belonging here, otherwise you don't get an entry or something like that, and then you give exclusive participation or membership for that kind of community to people, and then generate conversation within that. That's fine. Alternately, give content for them to consume, and that content which is rich in images, extremely well done videos, other things, they will be consuming. So in this particular case, you might find sort of a reach through showcasing content to the spectator audience. In that case, if you can create a close community of the right audience, you can start getting them to talk about you. That's basic points. Of course, there are more details about image quality, taking the tonality to a very high level, making people feel very, very special about belonging with you, things of that kind.
Thanks, Sanjay. Sanjay, there are other very similar questions about the topic of engagement, and I would summarize it by saying that according to you, what are the key measures of measuring engagement for a brand on social media?
So the very simple things, of course, is that have you got people to react to your content? So whether people even like your posts or respond to them or reply to that or share it are the very simple metrics of measuring engagement. However, there are more elaborate ways in which you can go about it. Whether they participate, so how frequently they come and engage with you. Do they spend, how much time they spend with you on your platforms? Are they also going from your social media platforms onto your website and spending time there? How much have they actually become? How become a part of a community and kind of participating along with you and along with the others in the community on a long-term basis by creating conversations, participating in conversations, responding etc. So getting into a real deep level of engagement demands that you consistently keep delivering a great experience to them, show them value, give them value. But at a first level, basic engagement, of course, is about getting them to like your content, share your content, comment on it, respond to it on regular basis, and those are measurable. The new Facebook Insights will show you a lot more detail about uh, what kind of engagement you are driving if you're talking about Facebook.
Great. So thanks, Sanjay. I think yeah, I can still see there are many more questions, and I don't see them completing. And I can also see a lot of people have raised their hands. So guys, sorry, I'm not able to. We are not able to take all the questions and all your requests. But one thing we will definitely do is we will have the recording of this session. That's one thing. Second, we will also have a blog post about this session on our blog. We've already shared the link to that. That will also have a recording, and any questions you have, you can post there and we will get the answers to that. If Sanjay, you are open, I can share your Twitter ID with them, and some of them may want to have a direct interaction with you.
Sure.
Will that be fine, Sanjay?
Yeah, happy
So
to
Sanjay's Twitter handle is SM63, S for Sanjay, M for Mehta, and 63. If you have any questions about social media strategy, maybe about social wavelength, about Radiant 6, I can see there were some questions. You can directly connect Sanjay on Twitter. Right. So I think otherwise it has been a great day. I myself ended up learned a lot. So thank you all for being so patient and helping us break this mark of 100 people. And thanks again, Sanjay, for spending your time with us. And guys, I look forward to having a next webinar, hitting this mark and be solving that ongoingly now.
Thank you, Pradeep.
So I'm closing this public. Yeah. You're welcome, Sanjay.
Bye-bye.